Hey everyone, this is the backside of Pixel, and I'm just going to show you how to get to the board in the event that you ever needed to do a firmware upgrade. So first thing is, of course, make sure we unplug the power, and then you're just going to undo these 4 screws. Before we pop out the board, let's also take our connectors off. Okay, let's just keep these wires here so we don't lose them. And now we can just pop out the board. So here's the board. This plate here, you can see this black plate, that just attaches to the board just to make it mount easier. We could also take this off too if we wanted to, but we don't have to. What we're trying to get to is our USB connection, which is right here. And that is what is going to allow us to do the firmware upgrade. So now we need to get the firmware. There's an application called IOIO Manager, which you can get from Google Play. And from here, you need to be able to get the firmware somehow. So in this case, I've just downloaded it. This is the updated firmware file to my SD card. But you can also, this app's pretty slick. It's got a QR code scanner. So on the website, if there's an updated firmware, I'll put the QR code there, and then you can just scan it that way. So that's another way to get the firmware. But for now, we'll just go get this the old-fashioned way from our local SD card. So we've added our firmware, and then this is the one we want, version 22. We go ahead and select it. Okay, now you want to, if you haven't already, unplug your USB dongle. So, and then we're going to take our USB cable. Big end goes here. Wrong way. And then the small end goes to the phone. Okay, so I've got these USB connected, and in order to do this firmware update, I need power. So the board does have to have power, otherwise nothing's going to happen. So let's go ahead and give it some power. And right now I have this switched off, so nothing's going to happen until I turn it on. And when I turn it on, it's then going to do the firmware update. Now let me show you how to make sure and verify that the firmware update went through. So we'll go ahead and exit out of this, and before I exit out, I want to uncheck that and then exit out of the app. And at this point, why don't we also unplug everything so we can do a valid test. And let's turn this off, and let's go back over Bluetooth. So we got our dongle plugged back in. So now let's go ahead and launch the IOIO hardware app, and this is going to tell us the version of the firmware we have installed. So right now this tells us it's got the 06 version of the firmware, which is the version I wanted. So that's how you can tell, and just make sure that your firmware update went through.